Hello everyone, welcome to another video. We're excited to introduce this 13-inch radio replacement for your 2015 to 2020 F-150, 2017 to 2022 Super Duty vehicles. This is everything that you have been waiting for and more. And I don't just say that because I understand what this unit is capable of when it comes to features and functions. I say that because I understand where the factory radio in today's vehicle is. If you think about it, if it wasn't for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, if you're lucky, a lot of new head units don't even come with that, including the aftermarket radios available for your vehicle. If it wasn't for those two functions, they would be dead in the water. There would be nothing new, nothing innovative. The CD player is long gone. Let's not talk about cassettes, and let's not mention CD changers. So what's left? Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But before we get started, let's go over everything that's included inside the box. You're also going to receive a welcome letter. This welcome letter contains contact information so that you could reach out and talk to somebody should you have any questions or concerns regarding features, functions, including installation tips. Let's briefly go over these plugs, the detailed wires and plugs that are coming off of each one of the harnesses. We'll take a look at that the minute we turn the radio around and take a look at the plugs on the back and how each one of these plugs plugs right in. This is your main power speaker connector. This is your factory USB charging function retention harness. This right here is a USB input design just in case you happen to have your favorite music files on a USB drive, or you have music videos, or you have movies. This is the one that you're going to use to plug your thumb drive directly into it. It has the ability to handle up to a terabyte hard drive. They will have two backup camera retention harnesses. You're not going to use both. You're going to use one or the other depending upon which one your vehicle is equipped with. The other harness that's in here is your antenna adapter. This is so that the factory antenna can plug in to the new radio. Right over here is the microphone. This is so that you can use it with Apple CarPlay or Bluetooth connectivity. We have the 3 camera input harness, front, side, and rear. This is your fiber optic Toslink audio output. A lot of people are not very familiar with what this does. We'll go over those details as soon as we get a chance to plug this into the back of the radio. We have your auxiliary audio video input cable. So if you have a third-party DVD player or any additional audio source that you'd like to plug into the back of this unit, this is the harness that you would use. We call this a DVR harness, but really it's designed to give you constant power, ignition, 12 volt, and ground output if you wanted to run power to any other accessories off the new radio. This has the ability to handle up to 4 amps. This is your front, rear, and subwoofer output. If you want to add aftermarket amplifiers to your new radio, this is the harness that you would be using. If you notice, it also has your microphone plug. And now let's go over the 4 antennas that are included in the kit. You have your GPS antenna. This is your Wi-Fi antenna. And you're going to have 2 4G LTE antenna connections. And then last but not least, you're going to get this CAN box module. This is what makes all the magic happen. This is where all the programming to run your factory backup camera, your factory steering wheel controls, this is where it's all happening. Now, you're also going to get a wipe to keep your screen clean, and you're also going to receive this frame. We'll go over this little frame the minute we talk about the SIM card capability of your new head unit. This unit has the ability for you to get a data plan on a SIM card so that it's always connected to a cellular network. That way you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi hotspot from your phone to the unit. This unit can always be connected to an internet source. You could do Wi-Fi hotspot, but it's always better for that unit to be connected to a cellular network. It's less hassle for whenever you get out and get back into the car. Now that we've gone over the included harnesses, let's go over some of the hard buttons that are included on your new radio, as well as the soft touch buttons that are on the screen. But before we jump into that, the screen also comes with a plastic screen protector. So if you see any smudges or anything like that, keep in mind that it has a screen protector and that's what you're looking at. The layout of your dash is going to also change a little bit. At the top of your factory radio screen, you have 3 buttons, or 2 in some cases. Those buttons are going to get relocated to the bottom of this new panel. We include a blank because a lot of vehicles only have 2 buttons from factory. If you happen to have 3, then this blank simply pops out and it gets replaced with a 3rd button on your dash. Now let's take a closer look at the hard buttons that are included for your AC climate controls. Now, once installed in the vehicle, these buttons are going to be backlit. They're part of your instrument cluster illumination function that's controlled with your headlight on and off switch. And for your convenience and ease of use while you're driving, these are the hard buttons that are included on this panel for your AC climate controls. We have the max defrost, recirculation button, max AC, AC on and off, mode button to control ventilation, rear defrost, and we have, for those vehicles that are equipped with dual zone temperature controls, a driver side temperature control button as well as a passenger side. Now, if your vehicle is not equipped with dual zone temperature settings, when you adjust the driver temperature, it'll also adjust the passenger, and vice versa. When you adjust the passenger, it'll also adjust the driver. That means your vehicle is equipped with a single zone temperature setting. And the knobs you see on the left and the right side of the climate controls, the one on the left is a volume up and down function. The button in the middle is a mute button. The one on the right, depending on the audio source, if you're playing something off of Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, or from a USB stick or through Bluetooth, it'll perform a track up or track down, depending upon if you go counterclockwise or clockwise. But if you're in AM or FM, it'll serve a tune up and tune down function. Now let's zoom out and let's go over some of the on-screen functions. For example, additional on-screen climate controls. If you look right here where you have your passenger side and driver side temperature display, you also have a plus and a minus button. If you touch these once installed in the vehicle, temperature up, temperature down are going to do the same thing that the temperature up and temperature down buttons do on this panel down here. The AC button is going to also perform the same thing that the AC button down here does. So if you press that, it'll be the same thing as pressing this. It'll be AC on and off. You also have your recirculation function here. You have your mode button there, and you also have your front defrost right there. If you press the climate button, you're going to get a whole new page of climate control functions. This page is dedicated exclusively for climate control functions. You have a power on and off button that's going to turn off the AC completely. You have fan speed up, fan speed down, as well as a mode function to control ventilation. If you notice, this is just multiple ways of controlling one certain function. The mode buttons up here is the same thing as pressing the mode buttons on the bottom panel. Now you also have your AC on and off, max AC, max defrost, rear defrost. You have your auto and your recirculation function on the screen. It's very neat to have a screen like this. If you are driving and you happen to be driving from day to night, you'll notice that this particular function also has a night mode, and it's controlled by the illumination function on your vehicle. One very neat control that you have over this climate page is you have the ability to make it so that when you open it, it can time out and close by itself. So for example, if you're listening to your AM/FM or you're listening to something on Apple CarPlay or you happen to be listening to something through a USB input device, and you open up the climate page, you'll go through your adjustments in regards to temperature, in regards to fan speed, or ventilation. If you don't want to have to press the home button to exit that page, and you want the climate page to automatically close itself, you could do that. You can control the timing that this page stays open by doing this. You go to the home screen, you swipe up from the home screen, you go to settings, inside of system, down at the bottom, there's something called factory settings. You enter the code 1660, and then you press OK. And at the bottom of this page, you have something called climate timeout. You can have that page stay on for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or you can have the timeout function off so that it always stays on there. So for example, if I set it to 10 seconds and I go back to my home screen, and let's just say I'm listening to my radio. I open up the climate page and I make my adjustments. 10 seconds later, this screen is going to time out and I'm going to go back to seeing my AM FM or whatever the audio source was. Now let's go over the next row of buttons. Let's talk about multiple ways of controlling one function. For example, the arrows on the right and the left side of the speaker are going to control volume up, volume down. The knob down here also does volume up and down. Once you see the volume level indicator on the screen, if you touch it and drag it, it'll also perform a volume up and volume down function. If you swipe down from the top of the screen and you adjust this here, it also performs a volume up and down. If you touch the speaker in between the two arrows, it performs a mute function, just like if you press the button in the middle of the volume knob, it'll perform a mute function. The speaker on the screen, if you touch it, also performs a mute function. So that's just giving you options. There's not one way. It's whatever you prefer. Now let's talk about the two buttons on the right side of the volume controls and the two buttons on the left side of the volume controls. This button on the right side is going to open up every single one of the apps or programs that you have opened on the radio. You can kill them individually by swiping up, or you can press the clear all button. The four squares right over here is going to give you access to all of the applications that are on the unit, including the ones that you have downloaded. The minute you go to Play Store, log in and begin to download your favorite applications, the bottom here and the rest of the page down will begin to populate. You can access this screen by pressing these four buttons right here, or you can swipe up from the home screen. The two buttons on the left side of the volume controls, this is a back page. So whatever setting you happen to find yourself on, if you're in the settings page, under system, under setting guide, under car model IC, that button will take you back step by step all the way to where you started from. The home button, the home screen. The home button right next to it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It brings you back to your home page. And we'll talk about the home page layout later on this video. So wherever you are, whether you're in your applications, whether you're in your climate page, wherever you are, you want to go back to the home screen, you press the home button, and there you go. That's what the home button does. Now let's talk about these three squares, the two down here and the main one in the upper half of the screen. The bottom right square is going to control whatever audio source you happen to be on. If you happen to be in your video or audio, this would be your USB input. The minute you go to the home screen, you'll be able to control whatever it is you have plugged into your USB input. If you happen to be listening to your AM or FM and you go to the home screen, that's going to give you your AM FM information. You can change presets by doing this. You can tune by doing this. You can go back to your radio by pressing it. Once you go back to the home screen, on the left side, you're going to have a weather widget. This widget will follow you provided you are connected to a Wi-Fi network or you are connected to a cellular network. It'll follow you wherever you are, and it'll give you the temperature of wherever your location happens to be. This half part of the screen is your Google Maps. Google Maps is going to launch and open and give you your location, and you're able to use it provided you're connected to either a Wi-Fi hotspot connection or you are connected to a cellular network. So now that we've talked about what these three frames are going to do and how they interact with your cellular network connection or your Wi-Fi hotspot connection, what we're going to do, we're going to flip this unit around and we're going to connect all of our GPS antennas, the Wi-Fi antennas, the 4G LTE antenna connections, as well as the other plugs so that you could see where every single plug goes and what each single one of these harnesses is supposed to do. And it'll also give us a chance to demonstrate what these squares look like once you're actually playing something from CarPlay or Android Auto, or you're viewing your map through here. So we'll get a chance to show you because we'll bring them to life by connecting them to a Wi-Fi signal when we show you how to connect this unit to a Wi-Fi hotspot connection. But we'll also show you how they work once you are connected to a cellular network. But before we get into that, let's go over this upper row of buttons. One of the things I like about this unit is, like I mentioned to you before, there is no one way of controlling certain functions. For example, the four squares down here, which are designed to open all the different applications that you have installed on this radio, these four buttons up here basically serve the same function. To the right of this, you have your CarPlay Android Auto connection. This is where you're going to press to open up the Android Auto CarPlay connectivity. To the left of the four squares, you're going to have your video input source. This is if you have a USB connector plugged into the USB port, which has music videos or movies. We'll also show you how this works once we get a chance to turn it around and make all the connections and show you once we have a USB thumb drive plugged into it. Let's go back to the home screen. This phone button here is going to open up Bluetooth. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth, Bluetooth is the beginning of a Apple CarPlay or Android Auto connection process. You go to Bluetooth, you pair a new device, and once you are connected to Bluetooth, if you manually open your CarPlay or Android Auto application, then the phone proceeds to go through and give you that function. If you have it set up so this application automatically launches, then what will happen is right after connecting your phone to Bluetooth, it'll automatically launch CarPlay or Android Auto. iPhones happen to ask you if you want to use CarPlay or not. Android Auto doesn't ask you. It automatically just opens up. But you have the option to make the CarPlay application automatically launch, or if you want to manually launch it every time your phone connects to Bluetooth. Those are some of the choices and features and functions that we'll show you once we get into CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity. Now, if you don't connect to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, the phone button is going to open up your Bluetooth function the way we all know it. Bluetooth audio streaming with phone call capability, your contacts, your music that's on your phone. This is what you're going to use to access music files from your phone without necessarily jumping into CarPlay or Android Auto. Now, to the left of the phone button, you have a music icon. The music icon is going to access the music files that you have on your memory stick, whatever it is you have plugged in. If it has music files, video files, and movie files, you're going to open your video and movie files using that button. You're going to use this button to access your music audio files. Now, to the left of the audio icon, we have this navigation button. all that does is it launches your Google Maps application. So pressing this button is the same thing as pressing your Google Maps on the main screen. Let's go back to the home button. On the left side of this, you have what looks like a sun. Basically, this is a manual dimming function. If you press it, you're going to gain access to 3 stages of brightness that this unit comes with. You can use this button up here, or there's another one in the upper right hand corner. If you press that one, it also basically does the same function. It gives you manual access to 3 brightness settings that this unit has. Now, at the very top of the display, you also have some more information that you need to be aware of. We mentioned the brightness setting that the radio has in the upper right-hand corner. Right next to that, it has a Wi-Fi hotspot strength indicator. This is going to tell you how strong the Wi-Fi connection to the unit is. There also will be another icon right next to that one that tells you the signal strength for your 4G LTE. Once we get a chance to load a SIM card into this unit, you will see where the signal strength for your cellular network connection will show. To the left of that, it looks like a person sitting on a seat and it says off right next to it. This is your passenger airbag indicator. Remember, your factory radio with the climate controls also has an airbag indicator for the passenger seat. It basically gives you a status. It'll tell you whether the airbag is on or the airbag is off, depending upon whether someone is sitting there or not. To the far left, you have your time and date. Now let's talk about the buttons that come from the drop-down menu. When you drop it down, earlier we showed you that this is your volume level indicator. This is a manual brightness level adjustment. If you press this button right over here, that button is going to black out your screen. The radio is still on, the audio is still playing, the unit is still on in the background, but the screen happens to be dark. When you touch it, the radio comes back on. The other buttons that you have access to, for example, is these 4 squares. Those 4 squares serve the same purpose that these 4 squares do, that these 4 squares do. Again, multiple ways of performing one function. It's whatever you prefer. It's whatever you like. So when you drop it down and you touch those 4 squares, you're going to gain access to the applications. It's the same thing as pressing this button. It's the same thing as pressing that button. Again, just multiple ways of doing one certain function. Right over here, this is your back button. It's the same back button that you have here. So whether you're in settings and you're making some adjustments, whatever it is that you're doing, and you want to go back, you can drop the menu down and hit back on this button to eventually end up on the home screen, or you can use this back button right over here. Other functions that you have on that menu is your home screen. This button right here is going to bring you back to the home screen just like the house button right here does. Drop it again, and this right here is going to open up all the different applications that you've launched that are still open in the background, that are still running. So that button basically serves the same function that this button here does. It'll open up all of the applications that you have running in the background. Other buttons that you have here, for example, is this camera button. You push that once and it'll take a screenshot of whatever it is that you're showing on the display at the moment. You can then access those files, email them to somebody, or share them with whoever you like. Drop that menu down again, and you're going to have this button here. When you press and hold it, it's going to take you straight to the SIM slot 1. This is the information that shows you the status of the SIM card that you've loaded into the back of this unit. Drop the menu down again. If you press and hold this button, it's going to take you directly to the Wi-Fi hotspot connection. All you have to do is press and hold it, and it'll take you directly onto the Wi-Fi hotspot connection. This is where you tell the unit that you want to use the Wi-Fi hotspot. You turn it on, and the unit's going to begin to look for any Wi-Fi signals in the area. This other button here, you press and hold this button, is going to take you straight to your Bluetooth pairing page. This is where you tell the unit that you want to pair and add a new device. You put your phone in the pairing mode, and it'll be discoverable by the radio, and it'll show up on this part of the screen. And last but not least, you have this button right over here. You press and hold that button, and what it's going to do is it has a hotspot and tethering function. This particular function is not enabled on this unit yet. Future versions might have the ability for you to use this as a Wi-Fi hotspot signal so that other people can connect to it. Remember, you're going to have a SIM card that's connected to a cellular network already loaded into it. So why not make this unit have the ability to tether Wi-Fi hotspot to other devices in the car? We might save that for future versions of this unit. The airplane button, all it does is it turns off Bluetooth, it turns off your Wi-Fi and your cellular data connections. It basically does the same thing that airplane mode does on your phones. So now that we've gone over our control panel, the hard buttons and the knobs, we've gone over our climate controls, the additional buttons here, the 3 frames on the main screen, the buttons at the top, and the drop-down menu. What we're going to do next is we're going to flip this unit around. We're going to show you all the different connections that are found on the back. And then we're going to go over every single harness again that is included in the package, but this time we're going to show you what each one of the wires does and where they plug in to the back of this radio. So now that we have this unit face down, let's take a look and identify all of the different plugs that are on the back of this unit. For starters, let's identify all of your antenna connections. This is your GPS antenna plug. This is your AM/FM connection. This is your 4G LTE antenna plugs. This is your Wi-Fi antenna connection. And then next, we're going to take a look at this HDMI connector. This is an HDMI output. If you'd like to do an HDMI input, let us know and we'll guide you and show you what parts you would need to get. It is sold separately. To the left of the Wi-Fi antenna connection, you have the main power speaker plug, and then you also have a 15 amp fuse in there. Right here is the grid of plugs where all of your small colored connections are going to go. These are the plugs that are going to have your backup camera input. It's going to have your audio preamp RCA outputs. It's going to have your microphone input connection, your backup camera input, so on and so forth. To the bottom of this main cage, this is where the 2 AC climate control plugs are going to plug directly into. You will disconnect these plugs from the back of the factory AC climate control board, and they're going to plug directly into here without having to do anything else. And the cable that you see coming out over here, this is where your SIM card is going to be loaded into. This is your SIM card carrier. This cable is long enough for you to mount this into the glove box, route it towards the glove box, route it towards the driver's side kick panel so that you can load the SIM card at a later time without having to pull the radio out. If you happen to be ready to load a SIM card on the day of the installation, this is where it goes. You can just tuck this cable directly into the back, or you could still route it to the glove box. You can still route it to the driver's side kick panel for easy access if you ever need access to it again. All right, so now that we've gone over all of the different connections on the back of the radio, let's go over all the different harnesses and the antennas and what every single one of these wires and every single one of these plugs is supposed to do. The 4G LTE antennas don't really need much explanation. The only thing you need to know is when installing them or mounting them into your vehicle, they don't necessarily need to be exposed. They don't necessarily need to be extremely far away from each other. You can put them next to each other. You can put them 6 inches away. You can put them in this direction. You can put them in that direction. It really doesn't matter. What we have found after a few years of using this technology is that these antennas, the GPS antenna, and the Wi-Fi antenna can all be together in the same area. They don't necessarily interfere with each other, so they don't have to be completely separate. You could mount them within the same area. All you have to do is before you take the double-side stick tape off, make sure that you clean the surface with an alcohol prep pad, and then you dry that area. It's going to create a better bond for the double-side stick tape to stick on there, and it'll stay on there for as long as you have this particular unit in the vehicle. So this is the 4G LTE antenna plugs. This is the Wi-Fi antenna connection, and this is your GPS antenna plug. Next, we're going to talk about the smaller plugs. This is a cable that's going to give you Toslink fiber optic output. It is known as a SPDIF output cable. A lot of people call it SPDIF. I'd like to call it Toslink fiber optic out. All this is going to do is it's going to give you a digital optical output so that you can connect this to higher end amplified systems. If you look around, JL Audio has a digital sound processor that all it does, it uses fiber optic connections for all of the network plugs in between the radio, the DSP processor, as well as the JL Audio amplifiers. So this is just in case you want to build a really high-end audio system using the Toslink output connection of the radio. This is an audio output cable. Next, we have this cable that's labeled DVR. Coming out of this cable, you're going to have power, ground, and ignition voltages coming out of it. You can use it to power other devices in the vehicle that need an ignition 12-volt out or that need a constant 12-volt out. You can use this cable to power those devices. Remember, a maximum amperage output out of this is 4 amps. Next, we're going to talk about this cable. This is your auxiliary audio input cable. If you have an external DVD, if you want to keep function or add an auxiliary audio input to this head unit, all you need to do is take the caps off. If you're not going to be using this cable, I would normally recommend that you plug it in, don't leave it out, and also don't remove these plastic cap protectors, because what happens once this is plugged into the back of the radio and these units begin to touch other bare metal surfaces that are within the radio cavity, they could generate interference. They could pick up ground noise or anything that's known in the audio industry like ground loops. The other cable that you're going to get is this off-white or kind of yellowish. This is your front, rear, and RCA output connector. This is front, rear, and subwoofer output plugs. This is what you're going to use just in case you want to run multiple amplifiers. You can use your front and rears to go to a 4-channel amplifier, which will run your front and rear 4 speakers. You can then take the subwoofer outputs and run them to a sub-amp to be able to boost an aftermarket pair or single subwoofer. You have independent subwoofer crossover frequency selector for the subwoofers, as well as gain adjustments. You have the same type of adjustment inside of the DSP for your front and rear speakers. On this same plug, we have the microphone connection. All you have to do is take the microphone, mount it in the A-pillar of the vehicle, run it down, and this simply plugs right in here. And here's your microphone. This is the AM/FM antenna adapter. All you're going to do, you're going to disconnect the FM plug from the back of your factory radio, plug it into here, and this is going to stretch long enough to go into the new radio. This is your backup camera input cable. On this plug, we have 3 different camera inputs. They're labeled front, right side, or it could be left side. I like to call it side camera input, and your rear camera input. The rear camera input is labeled factory camera input. Now, the front and side camera inputs are manually triggered. You have to manually access them through the radio. It has an icon labeled cam. The backup camera input is automatically triggered using the CAN bus module. You don't need to run a trigger wire from your reverse light up to the radio for the radio to go into backup camera mode the minute you put the vehicle in reverse. So this is going to be your factory rear camera input, or if you happen to be replacing your factory backup camera with a better aftermarket backup camera, this is where you would plug that in. In addition to the 3 camera inputs, this harness has outputs, power outputs for every single one of your cameras. So if you happen to be running an aftermarket rear camera, the aftermarket cables will have a yellow RCA plug that's going to go into here, and it'll have a power wire right next to it. That power wire is designed to power your camera on the other end. Well, here you have a wire labeled reverse power. You have a wire labeled front cam power. You also have a wire labeled right cam power. So these power outputs can also power any one of the 3 cameras that you're going to be using through this harness. This 360 trigger is going to manually trigger the radio into reverse mode. 99.9 times out of 100, you're not going to be using any one of these 4 wires. Now, if you want to manually trigger the radio into backup camera mode when you are driving forward, you could supply a 12-volt signal into here, but you really don't need to, because if you want to see the backup camera, all you have to do is hit the cam button on the screen and you'll be able to see it. Factory backup cameras are powered by the car. So that's what this harness does. These are the wires that are on there, and these are the plugs. And again, only take off the plastic cap from the inputs that you are using. The ones that you're not using, leave them in there so that you don't run the risk of picking up any interference when these contacts touch any bare metal surfaces on the back of the radio. Now let's talk about USB inputs. These 2 cables, white and red, the white one is a 2-ended cable. This plug goes into the back of the radio, and the other end could be routed to your glove box so that you have access to your USB input, just in case this happens to be a 256 memory stick, just in case you have movies, music videos. You can plug that into it, and you can leave it in the glove box, and now every time you hit the video or the music icon on the screen, it'll access whatever files you have on your USB input. The same thing with this red plug. This red plug has 2 ends. One end is labeled USB. This is where your factory USB plug is going to plug into. You will find a mate to this plug behind your factory radio, and this is designed to maintain the factory USB inputs. Please make note of this. The factory USB inputs will not work for wired CarPlay or Android Auto. Again, the factory USB inputs will not work for wired CarPlay or wired Android Auto. The factory USB inputs will simply continue to provide you with a USB charging function the minute you plug the factory USB into this plug. The other end of this cable is a USB input. It's a USB-A connector, and it's labeled phone link. The reason why this is labeled phone link, it's because Apple CarPlay is only wireless on this unit. Android Auto is wired and wireless. So if you want to run wired Android Auto, this is the input that you want to use. You don't have the option to run wired CarPlay. CarPlay is only wireless. So that's what these 2 cables are going to serve. That's the different purpose that these 2 cables are going to serve. Now, I'm going to bring back this camera cable, because inside of the kit, we have two backup camera retention harnesses. One of them has a 12-pin plug, and you'll have a mate to this plug on the back of your radio cavity. You plug it in there, and it'll say reverse camera output. You're going to take this output and you're going to feed it into the factory cam input, just like this. So this is going to go to your car, this is going to go to this harness, and this harness is going to plug into the back of the radio. If you don't have this 12-pin connector, you're going to have this 54-pin plug. Now, this 54-pin plug also has your reverse camera input, and that is going to go directly into here. So that's how you're going to maintain function of your factory backup camera. The other plugs on this harness, one of them is going to go to your factory 54-pin backup camera harness. The other two plugs, one is designed for you to add a multi-channel camera interface module. So if you need beyond 3 cameras to your new radio, there is a multi-channel camera interface module that's going to provide you with 6 camera inputs. The inputs that are plugged into the multi-channel camera interface module are triggered through CAN bus. So whenever you put the left turn signal on, the left camera will come up. Whenever you put the right turn signal on, the right side camera will come on, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to bring in the main harness because this other small plug, this all goes in junction with the main harness. So on the main harness, you're going to have a plug that's labeled 360 camera box power. It has a dummy plug on it that you have to remove. And what you're going to do is you're going to remove that dummy plug. You're going to then plug that into this harness here. And they're labeled 360, but that doesn't mean you're getting a 360 camera view. You're simply just mating these connectors. So these two plugs go together. The other one goes directly into the multi-channel camera interface module. This one that has an orange wire and a black wire labeled USB power, this is going to help you maintain the factory USB charging function. So on the main harness, there is a plug that's going to mate with this connector. And it also has the same color wires, orange and black. All you have to do is make sure that you plug them into each other and your factory USB ports will continue to charge. This plug is in addition to the other USB input cable that I explained to you earlier, which happens to be this one right here. So these two connectors are going to keep the factory USB port charging function functional. Now, we have the main harness. We have the 54-pin camera retention harness here, and we have the backup camera input harness on this other end. So this right here together is what's going to make up it's going to make up the ability for you to maintain the factory backup camera, add a multi-channel camera interface module, keep the USB ports charging, and as well as a subwoofer plug just in case your factory amplified system has a subwoofer from factory. Now, in addition to the plugs that you see here, this is your power speaker plug. This is the main plug that goes into the car, and this other harness is designed for steering wheel control. So you'll be able to maintain those. Aside from that, there's another white plug. This is where the CAN bus module is going to plug in. All you have to do is plug it in and it's going to do its thing. You don't have to program it. You don't have to set any dip switches. It's already done for you. That's one of the things I really like about this kit. All you have to do is know how all of these connectors go together. So in addition to these plugs, you have a few other wires on this main harness. These wires, one of them is labeled AMP-EN. This particular wire is your remote turn on to aftermarket amplifiers. If you want to add amplifiers, this is the wire you're going to use to be able to turn them on whenever the new radio is on. There's another one labeled 360 trigger. It really has nothing to do with a 360 camera system. This is just in case you want to manually trigger the radio into backup camera mode. Let's just say, yes, it's a nice 13-inch screen, but do I have to use it in an F-150 or for whatever the application is intended for? The real answer is no, but you would have to know what you're doing if you wanted to dissect this plug to be able to provide your own constant 12 volts, ignition 12 volts, and ground. At that point, this radio becomes a true universal aftermarket radio. You would just have to custom fabricate it into whatever application you're trying to use it in. But the remote turn on will work. You can manually trigger it into backup camera mode. And you also have SWC1, SWC2. These wires in the application that this radio was made for, you will never use them. But if you wanted to use it in a universal application and the vehicle you're putting it into happens to have factory steering wheel controls, you could get an aftermarket steering wheel control interface and hardwire it into here so that the radio or the vehicle you're putting it into can control the radio using its steering wheel control functions. And that's what these 4 wires are normally intended to do. 99.9% of the time, you're not going to use them, and you're going to use it in this form where it was designed to plug into itself the way you're looking at it here. And that's it for all of the harnesses that are included in the kit. One of the things we're going to do next is we're going to flip this radio back on its face, and we're going to plug in all of the connectors one by one so you could see where they go and what they look like once they're plugged in. So something very important to keep in mind is your 4G LTE antennas, your GPS antenna plugs, they are keyed. So don't just reach in there and plug them in. Make sure that you find the locking tab. They're facing to the outside of each one of the plugs so that when you plug them in, make sure that the locking tab is facing the outside of the plug itself. And I normally like to start with my antenna connections. So this one's going to go in there, locking tab facing out. It's going to plug right in here. The GPS, the locking tab is facing up. Here is the AM/FM antenna plug. And now let's plug in our small connectors. I like to start at the bottom with my preamp outputs. Next, I go over to the right with the USB input. The next one is going to get skipped. Then we're going to plug in our AV inputs. Now we're going to stop and start in the upper left-hand corner, which is the backup camera plug. Right next to that is the fiber optic Toslink audio out. Right next to that one is our power output cable. And right next to that is our factory USB wired Android Auto USB input cable. And last but not least, we have the main harness. And sorry, I almost forgot. We have our Wi-Fi antenna. So these are all the connections that you're going to be making into the back of the radio. I will flip these up just so you could see the different connectors that are on the unit. Let me give you a close-up, a zoomed in shot of those plugs. So there's a couple of things that we'd like to share with you in regards to SIM card. When it comes to a data plan for these units, what's really happening out there today is a lot of these service providers are asking you for a IMEI number. Now, the IMEI number that's inside of these units is unknown to a lot of these Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T service providers because it's not a Samsung or an Apple unit, so they don't know about these units in their database. So it's basically useless to them. And if you tell them that you're looking for a data plan for a tablet, they're going to ask you for an IMEI number. So it becomes very difficult. It becomes a big hassle to get a SIM card from them. And once you do, you'll load it in there and it may work for a day, it may work for a week, but then after a certain period of time, their system picks up on it being an alien IMEI number and the SIM card stops working. So what we've done is we've partnered up with a rep that'll provide us with SIM cards. We can mail one out to you at no charge, and you'll call them up. They'll go over the different rate plans, and in a matter of 2 minutes, they can have you activated. That's the same for T-Mobile as well as Verizon. So what I have here, or having said that, what I have here is inside of the package, you're gonna see this little SIM card tray. Because what happens is you may have a SIM card laying around on any one of your existing devices that you can pull out and insert into here, because SIM cards really have 3 different sizes. As you could tell, you have the SIM card, which would be considered small. This black frame is a medium size SIM card, and then this pink frame here would be a large size SIM card. Well, this particular unit takes a medium size SIM card. So if you have a small SIM card laying around somewhere, you would need to insert it into the medium frame so that it can fit into the SIM card holder. And once you're there, so you can load it into the SIM card tray. And once you're there, all you have to do is this metal tray here basically slides down, and then it'll flap open like this. You'll notice that the SIM card tray has a notch here on one of the corners, and that's gonna match up to your SIM card notch like that. And all you really have to do is put it in there, close the flap, and slide it up and close the tray. So now that we have our Wi-Fi connection, our 4G LTE antennas plugged in, we have our SIM card loaded, we also have a USB input cable that has a USB thumb drive plugged into it. Let's power the unit up and let's go over Google Maps. Let's go over USB input, and let's go over a few other on-screen settings that this unit has. So now that we've got the unit powered on, our GPS connection is done. One of the things you'll notice that it has already found our location. Another thing that it's done is Google Maps has already registered its location, so it already has information depending on where we are. One of the things you'll notice is the 4G LTE signal has now appeared, and it also shows that I have something plugged into the USB inputs. Let me give you a close-up of the status bar that's right up here. So this is what that information is going to look like. One of the things you want to make sure is when you press the weather app and this information opens up, you can choose between Celsius or Fahrenheit, and you can also set it so that it automatically sets its position. That function could be off, and you'll notice that it's not updating its location. Make sure that you put that and turn that switch on, close the application, and give it a few seconds up to a few minutes to locate itself. All right, so next, let's go over the USB input. You can touch the video button up here, you can touch the audio button over here, or you can touch this screen depending on what it says. Right now it says music, so if I touch it, it's gonna look for music files that are on my USB input. I don't happen to have any because all I have is music videos and movies. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press the home button and I'm gonna touch the video button. You'll notice that at the moment it'll say title, it says Batman Lego. I can see a track time already counting. It says that something that is an hour and 44 minutes is already playing. But the reason why the video isn't coming through, it's because this unit has a video in motion lockout. You can unlock it by going into the main settings function of the radio. You're going to go into system. You're going to go into factory settings. Enter the code 1660. Press OK. And right over here, you're going to see a function called video in motion. That happens to be on, and it's the reason why we can't see any video. You can turn that function off. And the minute you go back to your home screen and relaunch the video, you're now going to be able to see the movie playing through the main screen. And there's other features, there's other functions that this video player has. You can make it so that the entire screen plays the movie, but what you're looking at is a zoomed in version. Basically, you're cutting out a lot of what's on the side because this happens to be a vertical screen. So you want to bring it back to its original one-to-one function. You can now just fast forward through the movie and do stuff like that. You can touch this icon on the right side of the track up button, and you could go in and you can look at movies, which is one of the folders on that USB stick. Music videos happens to be the other one. I happen to select one of the videos by Aerosmith, Dream On, and I just go back, and now that video is playing through my screen. I can hit the home button, and that song, that video is still playing in the background. I can watch my Google Maps while I navigate to a certain location. What the unit is doing right now is it's looking for my location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a destination. I'm going to punch in LAX. I'm going to hit search. It's giving me results as far as where I want to go. I hit the start button right over here. It's going to give me directions right away. It tells me that I'm an hour and 28 minutes away. So I could be navigating using Google Maps while connected to a 4G LTE internet source, and at the same time listening to my music that's inside of my USB drive. That's one thing that's really cool about this unit. Now I've got half the screen showing me guidance for my navigation, and I have the other half showing me weather and my music information. Or I could be playing that music video while hearing the turn-by-turn guidance in the background. Now let me go back to the home screen and continue showing you other functions. Once you're in this home screen and you have your USB playing, you can change tracks. by going clockwise. You can go track up, you can go track back by hitting the knob counterclockwise. Open up your Google Maps, which is still showing us our turn-by-turn navigation. Press the back button to cancel our route and have it go back to where we are currently positioned. We can now hit the home button and keep our maps open the way it is. Since it's connected to a 4G LTE network, it'll always follow us. That's one of the cool things about having a SIM card loaded into this unit. It really unlocks an entire whole new world of features and functions. Now, earlier we talked about brightness settings on this unit. Let me show you one cool feature about this screen. So in addition to you having the 3 stages of brightness levels on these buttons here, in addition to you having your brightness adjustment here, you can set the unit so that it automatically goes between day mode and night mode when you go into settings. In here under general, you have something called day and night mode. Here's where you tell the unit that you want it to stay in day mode. Here's where you tell it that you want it to stay in night mode. And here is also where you tell it that you want it to automatically switch between day and night mode depending on the status of the headlights in your vehicle. Now that's awesome. But another cool feature that I like is the dimmer function. Here is where you'll tell it how bright you want it in day mode during daytime and how bright you want it in night mode during nighttime. And this is great because it makes it so much more comfortable to look at night when you're driving. But even better, inside of System, Android settings, you have another function inside of Display. It's called Nightlight. This is basically the eye comfort setting that some iOS devices have. You can turn it on manually. You can tell it how much of this yellow tint you want or how little of it you want. Or you can schedule it so that it comes on at night and it turns off during the day. That's very neat and it's very nice to have on a screen this size in the middle of your dash. So other cool features as far as audio sources go, obviously this unit has a built-in AM/FM tuner. You can access it by pressing the radio button, and typically this is what the screen looks like. You can swipe up to access your stored presets. You can use these buttons on the side to tune any given radio station. You can use this dial to tune any given radio station. You can use this button to punch in any given radio station. Just like this. And now you can also store presets. For example, preset number 1 is set to 87.5. I'm displaying 96.9. To store 96.9 as one of my presets, all you have to do is press and hold it. It'll go gray and then it'll turn off. That's when you know that the preset has been stored. This is your AM. You're going to get 12 presets for AM and you're going to get a total of 18 presets for FM. Down here, you can store your favorite FM presets. You can also store your favorite AM presets so that without you having to switch between AM and FM, you're going to have your favorite presets right down here. Remember, you can also use the tuning knob to tune up and down between the different frequencies on your FM or AM dial. Now let's talk about Bluetooth pairing, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. Before we start and go into pairing mode or pairing a new device via Bluetooth, what you want to do is understand the way the Car Auto application works. The Car Auto application happens to be here as one of the main applications inside of the application screen. It also is the one that's going to open when you press the Car Auto CarPlay Android Auto icon in the upper right hand corner. Make sure that you understand this setting because it's going to matter. It's the difference between your phone automatically launching CarPlay or Android Auto the minute you get out and back into your car. So inside of Car Auto, you're going to see this hexagon. You're going to push it, and there is a function called Allow Auto Boot. Allow Auto Boot can be turned on or it could be turned off. If it's off, what's going to happen is you're going to get into the car, your phone is going to pair to Bluetooth, but CarPlay or Android Auto will not automatically launch until you manually press the Car Auto application button. If you want it to automatically pair, make sure that inside of this setting, you turn Allow Auto Boot to the on position. Now, let's talk about wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless plus wired Android Auto. The way you tell the Car Auto application whether you're going to be pairing an iPhone or an Android device is you press this button down here. This is where you're going to switch between CarPlay and Android Auto. Now, we've told you that CarPlay is only wireless and Android Auto is wireless and wired. You can tell this is not necessarily a thing of the factory. It just happens to be that this platform only allows wireless CarPlay. When you set it to Android Auto, down here you'll notice a USB connection and a Bluetooth connection. When you switch to CarPlay, you only notice a Bluetooth connection. That means that CarPlay can only be connected via wireless, not wired. So what I have here next to me is an iPhone. It has already been opened to the Bluetooth application. I'm going to make sure that Allow Auto Boot is on, and I'm going to go into pairing mode. So because of time, the screen has already gone into eye comfort setting. Allow me to go in there and turn that off just so I can get back my bright blue screen. I'm going to go into Android Auto, and I'm going to come in here and go into display, and I'm just going to go to night light, and let me turn that off just so I can get my blue screen back. Now back to where we were. We're going to go ahead and make sure that Allow Auto Boot is on, and we're going to now swipe up. We're going to open Bluetooth. This button on the right hand side looks like a chain link. You press it and you now say pair new device. It's going to search for Bluetooth devices in the area. I'm going to turn on Bluetooth on this iPhone here. The minute the radio discovers the phone, the name of the phone will come up on the screen. All you have to do is touch it, and the phone is going to now ask you if you want to pair with this device. Touch pair. It's going to ask if you want to allow contacts. Tell it to allow. In the minute Bluetooth connection is established, the Car Auto application is going to automatically launch. Let's give it a few seconds. Bluetooth up here shows it's connected. My phone is going to now ask me if I want to use CarPlay or not. Once I select use CarPlay, it's going to open up the CarPlay application on the Car Auto app. And just like this is now the CarPlay screen. And this is everything that CarPlay obviously has to offer. You're familiar with this page: battery indicator, cellular network signal strength, time, and different ways to display map, what you're playing, as well as your favorite locations. So now this is how you would go between your applications. So this is CarPlay. Remember, this is just one app out of everything that this radio has the ability to do, and that is the Car Auto application. So I'm going to now disconnect my iPhone from the unit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from Apple CarPlay to Android Auto. Simply delete the radio from the phone. Kill the Car Auto application. Go into Bluetooth settings and delete your phone from the radio. Now that the iPhone has been completely deleted and disconnected, I'm going to grab my Android device. It's already inside of the Bluetooth pairing page. I'm going to select Pair New Device. I'm going to scan for Bluetooth devices on my phone. The radio has already found it. I'm going to select it. The phone's going to ask me if I want to pair. I say pair. It's going to ask me if I want to allow contacts or not. Here is the allow contacts. And now here is the Android Auto application. And that's how easy it is with this particular platform. It's hassle-free. It's basically as easy as it gets. And you're very familiar with everything that Android Auto has to offer in regards to applications and things like that. So that's it as far as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now remember, neither Apple CarPlay or Android Auto have a pinch to zoom function. They both give you a zoom in and zoom out button on the screen. The pinch to zoom function is a Google Maps function. You can pinch to zoom on Google Maps without any problem. But CarPlay and Android Auto don't allow for pinch zoom. They give you zoom in and out buttons. Now let's talk about Wi-Fi connection. You can provide a Wi-Fi connection from your phone's hotspot to this unit itself. But one of the disadvantages of having Wi-Fi hotspot from your phone to the unit is the radio basically uses Wi-Fi to establish Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connections. And what happens the minute you turn on the Wi-Fi hotspot of the unit, the phone itself turns off the Wi-Fi function and therefore interrupts the CarPlay or Android Auto connection. So keep in mind that you cannot have Wi-Fi hotspot and Apple CarPlay or Android Auto on at the same time. The minute I come in here and I turn on use Wi-Fi, look what happens to Apple CarPlay, or in this case, Android Auto. It has a hard time connecting or staying connected because we are turning on the Wi-Fi function. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the home screen, go to settings, and then I'm going to come in here under network, turn on Wi-Fi. But look at what happens. It turns itself off because it's connected to Android Auto. So when it comes to Wi-Fi hotspot, it's either or, but not both. So what we've done from a manufacturer's perspective to be able to keep Android Auto CarPlay with internet connection to this unit itself is we've added the SIM card capability. That's where you can have your cake and eat it too, sort of at the same time, because you could be connected to Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and be connected to the internet at the same time. And you can have applications like YouTube, Netflix, and every other internet functionality like Chrome, for example. One of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like to show you, I launched the Google Chrome application. I do a search, I'll do Google, for example. I'll do that. Here's my results. I go to google.com and then I'll do a search, for example. I will say SEMA 2024. And as soon as I hit search, boom, there's my results. I go to the SEMA show webpage. And one of the things that I said I like about this is how snappy it is, how responsive it is. I mean, this is one of the things where you go, I wish this unit was slower because it connects so fast. It does things so quick. So that's one of the things that I really like about a unit like this. And so in the past, while you're driving, if you ever had to look for something up, whether it be on Google Maps, or you had to search, for a local restaurant or anything like that, you normally would have to pull your phone out to do that. Well, with the unit like this, you don't have to do that anymore. You can simply pull over, do all of your browsing inside of this 13-inch screen where you don't have to worry about holding your phone out or having to pull it out. You can just reach into the screen, do your own Google Chrome search, look up Google Maps, anything you want, literally at your fingertips. All right, so now let's talk about one of my favorite features, the built-in DSP processor that this unit has. Inside of your applications, there's one labeled DSP. You're going to have access to a 16-band EQ from 20 to 20,000 hertz. It has preset EQ settings that you can choose from. You can also customize and create your own. And once you've done that, you can save that setting into any one of the custom presets. You press the save button and you select any one of the three. Select the first one, save it. Now you can go in between any one of the preset EQ settings, including custom number one, which is the one that you preset. But that's not all. You swipe over to the left, you're gonna gain access to active crossovers. This is your high frequency settings between 6,000 and 22,000. This is your mid-range, your bandpass filter, which is between 20 hertz and 680 hertz. You can change the way the mids in your doors sound like, and then you're going to gain access to your low frequency adjustments between 20 hertz and 250 hertz. You can set how soft you want your subs to hit or how hard you want them to hit, and you're going to have independent subwoofer gain control. Again, that's not all. You swipe over to the left, you're going to gain access to a sound field delay. This is so you can change the staging in your vehicle. If you're in the car by yourself, you may want to have these settings like this so that the audio system sounds more like it's around you, the driver. If it's you and the passenger in the car, you may want to switch the settings to something like this. And so what this is going to do is it's going to put the stage right on top of the dash so that you and your passenger can enjoy the music in the vehicle so much better. Now, if you swipe over to the left, you're going to gain access to your front and rear speaker and load level preamp output gains. This is going to control your front left, front right, rear left, rear right, RCA, and speaker outputs. Guys, this thing has front, rear, and subwoofer preamp outputs, a Toslink fiber optic output. If you're looking at any Android unit in the market, ask yourself, ask the manufacturer, what kind of audio presets does it have? Does it have built-in DSP? Does it have preamp outputs? Does it have a fiber optic Toslink output? All that pours value into a unit like this. Now, the other one that you're gonna also see is beyond this here, you can also come in here under settings, under system, under setting guide. You can change the way the outputs work. If you have a factory amplified system where it sounds like this unit is overdriving the inputs on that amplifier, you can turn the factory amp setting on and it's going to adjust the audio output to match the factory amplifier in your vehicle. Guys, again, all these audio features pour value into systems like this. And so one other thing we wanted to talk about is what makes a unit like this unique? What makes this unit more vehicle specific? What makes this unit, how does this unit integrate into the car? What does it do for the factory radio vehicle control settings? Inside of your applications page, you're going to find one app. This app is specifically tailored for the F-Series pickup trucks. Car settings is going to have everything that the factory radio had the ability to control in regards to audio, cameras. Now, it also has the ability to control the ambient lighting that some of these pickup trucks are equipped with, as well as the massage seats that the Super Duties have. Again, the car settings application is what makes this radio more vehicle specific to your F-150 or your Super Duty, because this is how this radio is going to integrate to the vehicle. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is right after the installation, and you're going to see this during the install, you're going to want to set your climate controls, because the radio out of the box doesn't know that you have single or dual temperature controls. So once you're done with the install, always pay attention to the factory climate control panel. Does it have a single temperature control? Does it have two? So depending upon which one you have, you're going to want to go into your applications page, under settings, under system, under setting guide. This is where you select car model AC. This is when you tell the radio, hey, I'm installing this into an F-150. If you have a Super Duty, it basically works the same way. So F-150 low is for F-150s and Super Duties that have single temperature control settings. F-150 high is for F-150s and Super Duties that have dual temperature controls. Now, other with Touch 360, this is whether you have the factory 360 system in the vehicle, and not just a factory 360. It's the 360 that has the camera button above the factory screen, and when you press it on the factory screen, you get to touch the different camera angles. That's the Touch 360. If you just have a plain 360 where the hard button camera does everything for you, that's not a Touch 360. In that case, you would select other. So what you want to do is you want to touch other. You always want to select all three. You want to tell it Ford, F-150 single zone or dual zone temperature controls, and I have the factory Touch 360, or I have the other type of Touch 360, or if you don't have the Touch 360 or any of the 360 systems, you're going to select other, and then it's going to want you to confirm. You're going to press OK. The minute you do this, the radio is going to turn off and basically turn back on. It'll perform a reboot cycle. Another settings that you're going to want to check for inside of the settings page, you're going to want to get into settings, system, setting guide. Here, when it comes to seat and steering wheel, this is where you tell the head unit, hey, my vehicle is factory equipped with a heated steering wheel, heated seats, as well as cooled seats, because once you enable these functions, you then hit save and reboot to save those settings. When you go to the climate page, you're going to see your heated and cooled seats options right over here. If your vehicle doesn't have those functions, then there really is no need for you to enable these settings. Now keep in mind, you enabling these settings in a pickup truck that didn't have factory heated seats, factory cooled seats, or heated steering wheel isn't going to magically make you now have those functions. They have to be factory equipped, enabled on the radio, so that you can keep function of them. Hopefully that makes sense. And so guys, that pretty much does it for features and functions, the hard buttons, the touchscreen, all the different features and functions that this unit is equipped with. I mean, I'm telling you, this is everything I have personally ever wanted into a radio for the car. I mean, if you think of where the factory head unit has been, like I mentioned before, if it wasn't for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, we would have nothing innovative for our vehicles today. Well, guess what? This brings all the latest and greatest technology into your vehicle. It modernizes the driving experience in the car. Now, I'm sure there's things that I have not gone over. If you have any specific questions about it, let us know. But before we get into the installation, I also want you to know that inside of your applications page, you do have an application called Foxit. Foxit PDF is the user manual for this radio. You could go through it and you can check out all the features, all the functions. There's a description of all the harnesses that you saw, the plugs on the back of the radio, you know, how to do different things within this head unit. And again, it's very brief. It's very detailed also. So again, take a look at it. And by all means, if there's anything that I haven't gone through, that I haven't covered, I mean, this is a page filled with specifications. The processor in this unit, you have 8 gigs of RAM as far as processing speed in something like this. You have basically a 13-inch HD IPS display, 1200 by 1920, and these are all the different audio formats that you can have on your USB stick. And again, other features and functions, for example, the amplifier output, the built-in amplifier is 50 watts times 4. That is the high level output on the head unit itself. Again, it's here for you to take a look at. I'm gonna leave this page opened up for a little bit just so that you can see some of the specs on this unit. So this would be the first page. This is the second page as far as specs, and that would be it. Again, let's get on with the installation. Thank you for sticking around. Comment, ask us some questions, and we'll be more than happy to assist. All right, so now that we've gone over on-screen functions, we've gone over all of the harnesses, how to do different things, we're gonna move on with the installation. We happen to be sitting inside of a 2019 F150. This particular truck happens to be a pretty base model. It does not have a factory amplified system like the Bang & Olufsen audio system or the factory Sony. It also does not have a factory 360. Those situations, those kind of applications will be addressed on a one-on-one basis. Feel free to reach out and ask your questions. But rest assured that we do have a solution for those situations as well. But one really good practice to have before disassembling anything or disconnecting anything is make sure that, one, you're getting audio and that your speakers all play. Make sure that your factory steering wheel controls work and that nothing is not working. Make sure that your factory backup camera is functional. Tailgate happens to be down, and that's why we get that view, but that's the factory backup camera. And so you'll see that the installation process is fairly simple. One, we're not going to be cutting any wires. We're not going to be splicing into any factory wiring. All we need to do is pop this top panel out. In this case, we don't have the center channel, so there's no need to remove the center channel grill to gain access to the screws back there. We're just going to need to pop this top plate. There's going to be 2 number 7 screws up here, and the minute we remove those, we'll be able to pop this entire piece right over here. So let's get on with that. So starting with a plastic panel removal tool, there's a rubber mat right up here that you can use your tool to be able to slide that mat out of the way. And right underneath here, you're going to have 2 number 7 screws holding down the back side of this panel. The front is being held by clips. So what I'd like to always keep handy is a right angle tool so that I can use my adapter like this, because the top piece between the screw and the windshield, there's not a lot of room. So I always like to keep something like that handy just so I could do something like this. And now that I have these 2 screws out, I can go ahead and use my hands to pop this panel up and remove it just like this. And so now that this is up and out of the way, this plug back here is where your center channel would be plugged into if it was equipped with it. Just disconnect it, move this tray out of the way, and you're gonna have 2 more number 7mm screws holding this top piece down. Again, I'd like to use my right angle tool to be able to get those out with ease. And now we should be able to pop this entire plate out. Now that this is out, I'm going to reach back here, disconnect the two connectors that are for my traction control, hazards, and automatic start-stop button, and my climate controls down below. So these are the two plugs back here. And we have two plugs for your AC climate controls. And these are them right here. These two buttons are going to get removed and they're going to get transferred over to the new panel. These are the two AC climate control plugs. These are going to plug directly into the bottom portion of the circuit board behind the new screen. And so to remove these buttons, it's actually fairly simple. They have wings, one wing on each side. All you have to do is squeeze those and push the buttons through, just like this. There is one. I'm going to put this one on the left side of the dash, just so I don't forget where it goes. And I'm going to put the other one on the right side of the dash, just so I don't forget where that one goes. There's no way to get these two plugs mixed up because they're not going to, one's not going to plug into the other one. So there's no way to get those two wrong. Plus, if you keep the buttons on the right side of the dash, then this one, you'll know, stretches over to that one, and this one goes to the one on the left. So that's it for those two buttons. Now you are going to have to remove these plastic orange clips because they're going to get transferred over to the new radio, so that way those clips can continue to hold the radio in place. And so this is where the two climate control plugs are going to go. So it's fairly simple. Those two plugs are down here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the screen and the bottom part of the radio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to remove one of these clips. It's not hard. It's just you got to get both of these wings up and out. Be careful. Sometimes these things just pop out as you're pulling them out, and make sure that you see them when they do that, because if they pop out and you didn't see it, then you won't know where it landed. So what I normally do is I'll grab one of them and I hold it with my finger like this, and then I'll grab the other side, lift it out and up, just like this. Let me show you another one just in case that one didn't come through very well. So what I'll do is I'll grab the one side, lift it up, hold it with my finger. Sorry, it's kind of difficult to hold this thing up high so you could get it in the camera lens. Let's try one of these. So I'll lift up, hold it up with my finger, and then grab the other side and slide that one up just like that. They go flying out. It's in the back seat now, but that's normally what I'll do. All right, so here we have all of the clips now removed from the factory panel. We'll put them on the new panel once we're getting ready to put it in. But what we're gonna do is remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 7 screws from the screen, and 2, 4 from the main radio unit right over here. So you could stick around for that, or you can fast forward the video, but this is the unedited raw version of the installation. We'll leave that there and we'll get it once we're getting ready to pull it out. You can save all of these screws because out of all these screws, the only 2 you're gonna end up using are the 2 that hold the entire panel up on top. So I'm gonna slide this out while using my index finger to hold those screws. Grab the one on this side, drop it there, grab the one on the other side and drop it there. So here is plug number 1 from the back of the screen. All you have to do is push down on the lock and slide it forward, to be able to get it off, and you don't even have to pull on it. The plug itself will release itself once you get this latch undone like this. So the plug basically comes out by itself. Here is the factory USB connectors, and here we have a information plug from the radio to the screen, which is this one right here. Next, we're going to take the two screws out of here and pull the radio out. And this right here is the main power plug to the radio, and this is where you're going to have the AM/FM antenna plug. Remove these two connectors like that, and you can put this to the side. All right, so one good practice to have is make sure you get an alcohol cleaning wipe and clean the surfaces where you're going to mount your GPS antenna, your Wi-Fi antenna, and your 4G LTE antennas. This is just general location. There's a perfectly good spot right here for your GPS antenna. Right next to it, I have the Wi-Fi antenna. So you'll find area back here, like your air vents, for you to clean and be able to mount one of your 4G LTE antennas on this side, the other one on this side. So what I normally like to do is mount all four antennas at once and then bring my cables down, and then I'll put them together like this, just so that when I am ready to plug them into the back of the radio, I don't forget one. I know that they're all here, and now I'm not digging through all the harnesses trying to figure out where's my Wi-Fi antenna, where's my GPS antenna. I have them here all ready to go. So that's one really good common practice to have. The other one is microphone. We're going to be mounting this up here against the windshield, right above the A-pillar. So I'm going to remove the A-pillar plastic cover and handle, and I'm going to run my wire on the inside of the A-pillar, because some vehicles will have curtain side airbags that you don't want to run on the outside, simply because it was easier and you didn't want to take the time to remove the plastic. So you want to make sure that you do it right. That way this cable doesn't get in the way of the airbag, should the airbag ever need to be deployed. So right behind here, these plastic caps, you want to grab them and slide them out this way. Be careful, there's a couple of plastic pins holding them in place, and you don't want to break them off. Just move them off to the side, and with a number 10 millimeter socket, you can just take them out. This one happens to be magnetic, so it's not going to go anywhere. So remove the top one and the bottom one. And once you have those two taken out, all you have to do is pull on the panel like that, put it off to the side, and you're going to want to run your microphone wire on this side along with the factory wiring. Use some zip ties to make sure that wire doesn't get on this side of the airbag. What most people will do is they'll open the door, and from the outside they'll pull the weather strip out, and all they will do is they will tuck the wire in back here, and so they'll do this number like this. They'll put the wire through here and they'll run it down, but that's a very lazy and wrong way to do it, because that wire will get in the airbag's way. So you want to make sure that you don't do that, and take the time to remove the plastic cover so that you run your microphone wire down along with the factory wiring. All right, so now that we have the microphone wire zip tied to the factory wiring harness, I'll normally leave a little bit of slack like this, because once you bring this panel back up here and you're going to put it in place, you're going to want to move the microphone out of the way so that you can do that. And Once that's in, then typically what I'll do is I'll grab this rubber out the way so that this panel can make it, and then the rubber will go back onto here. So that weather strip, I'll just move it out the way. I'll grab the microphone to make sure that my bottom is lined up, my clip up here is lined up, and I will simply just snap that back in place. My microphone can now stick to the windshield, or I can use the included clip to clip onto this plastic panel instead. But now my microphone is here, the microphone wire is routed correctly. I can now put this rubber weather strip back into place, and the factory airbag, curtain side airbag, is intact. I'm just going to put the bolts back into place, and then we'll focus back onto what's going on in the dash. All right, so back to what's going on in the dash. I have my 4 antennas already here. My microphone plug is the other one that I would make part of this bundle. And I now have the 2 USB input plugs ready to go. I have already routed my 2 USB cables to my glove box. I have them sticking out just so you could see them there. But the other one is the short one. This one's designed to keep the factory USB plugs charging. One of the things that you're not gonna do with the factory ones is they don't work for CarPlay and Android Auto, wired CarPlay and Android Auto. They will continue to charge, but the beauty about this is you can use the phone link for wired Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay happens to be only wireless. So both CarPlay and Android Auto are wireless. Android Auto is the only one that's wired through that input. Now, once we've got our USB connectors in place, the next focus is to connect my backup camera harnesses. Remember, there is 2. There is this one that's a 12-pin plug, but you don't have that one in this case. Remember, it's whichever one you have. So you're gonna have either the 12-pin plug or the 54-pin plug for your factory backup camera. So you're not gonna have both. It'll be one or the other. And in this case, we happen to have the 54-pin plug right over here. And so once that plugs in, pay attention, because this is the latching that's going to basically lock this connector in place. You have here the factory backup camera output. This is USB power. So these are the only 2 plugs you're going to need on this particular harness. This is if this vehicle was equipped with the factory 360 camera system, then you would need an additional 360 camera retention module. Or if you wanted to use the multi-camera interface module, which gives you 6 inputs, that would plug into here. But in this case, we're only trying to maintain the factory USB ports to charge and the factory backup camera. And so that plug labeled USB power, here's the main power harness to the new radio. Off of this harness, you're gonna have the mating connector for the USBs to stay functional. Now, aside from this plug, on this main harness, you're gonna have a couple of loose wires. You're not gonna use these, but just so you know, if you wanna add an aftermarket amplifier to this radio, you're gonna need what's known as a remote turn on. So as long as the radio is on, it's gonna send out a power on trigger circuit to your aftermarket amplifiers. The wire you're gonna use to do that is this orange one labeled AMP EN. This is your remote output to your aftermarket amplifiers. Let's get this harnesses plugged in. So now that we have our harness, our main harness plugged in, we have our CAN bus module plugged into the only white plug that would plug into here. These are the 2 plugs that you removed from the main radio down here. This is the main plug that was connected to your factory monitor, which now has our backup camera output and the USB power plugs. Anything else on this harness you're not gonna need. We now have our AM/FM antenna plug, and if you're wondering which one it is, it's the black plug. Sometimes it's white, but it is the one that's got the thickest gauge cable on it. And of course we have our USB inputs right over here. And besides that, the only thing you really need now is, out of all the extra harnesses, the only ones you really need is your rear camera input harness and the one that has your front, rear, and subwoofer outputs, but because that one has your microphone plug on it. Now, one other really good common practice to have is any wires that you're not going to use, you want to keep the gel tips intact, but you want to tape them up just so that those gel tips don't have the possibility of falling out in the process of stuffing all these harnesses and wires into the dash. The same thing goes with your DVR cable. Remember, these are live wires when the radio is on. So you want to make sure that you keep the gel tips and that you add additional tape around it so that those gel tips don't fall off. And, you know, just don't have the possibility of them becoming a problem in the future or in the process of you stuffing these harnesses back inside of the factory radio cavity. So it's really good common practice to take the necessary precautions to avoid any future problems. So just, if you're not going to use it to supply power to anything, go ahead and tape them up, keep the gel tips intact, and now once you're handling these wires to go back in there, they don't pose any problems. All right, so now that we have all of our harnesses in place, what I'd like to do is keep all my small plugs in a bundle, just like I did with all of my antennas. And then I'll have my main power plug, and then I'll have my AM/FM antenna plug. So that's what I'd like to do instead of having everything everywhere. I'd like to keep them together just so that I don't forget anything. So I have the radio here with all of the plastic clips already in place, the ones that we took out of the factory panel. And so what I normally do is I'll hold the radio in the palm of my hand like this from the screen, and I'll hold it sideways just so that I could see what it is that I'm doing in the process of connecting all of these different harnesses. So I like to start with all of my antennas. And so, because what happens is if you do the small plugs first, then you're going to have a hard time gaining access to the other antenna connection. So I'll start with these down here. I'll get to my Wi-Fi antenna on the side here. And then last of the antenna plugs is the GPS antenna. Let's not forget that we also have our AM/FM down here. This particular cable, which is a SIM card holder, could be routed to the glove box because it's long enough, or we could leave it behind the radio if we inserted a SIM card from day one. So then next, I'll grab all the small plugs, and I'll start with bottom row first, just so that, because that makes it easier. So it's the white one first on the bottom left, which is my USB input for thumb drives. Sorry, off-white first, which is my microphone plug, right over here like this. And then it's my white one. The third one there doesn't get used. And then the last one is my auxiliary audio video input. This is the last one on the bottom. And then at the top, starting from the left, from my perspective, is the black one, which is the backup camera plug. Let me try and pull this one out of here. So I'll do the backup camera first. And then next we'll do our Toslink fiber optic cable, which is this one here. And then it is our power output harness / DVR plug. Let me pull this GPS antenna out so you can see. And then last is the red plug. right over here. There you go. And then I'll put the GPS antenna back in, just like that. And then the only thing that's left is my AM/FM plug, the main power harness, and my 2 AC climate control connectors. All right, so one of the things, now that we have the plugs plugged into the radio, one of the things that I wanted to share with you is the 2 plugs that were up here that were supposed to be for your traction control and your hazards button. Remember, on the new radio, they're gonna be on the bottom. So these plugs, instead of being up here, they're gonna need to get routed to the bottom because they're gonna now connect down here. There's a couple of spots that you can undo a plastic retaining clip right up here, and there's another one right here. All you have to do is just pop them out, and these harnesses will now be long enough to come all the way down, and they're going to now connect down here into the new location. So that will make them long enough to reach down here. So that's all you have to do as far as relocating this one harness from being up here to now being down there. So while still holding the radio here in the palm of my hand, I'm gonna go ahead and now connect my main power plug into the radio, and then I'm gonna connect the AM/FM antenna plug right up here, which is right over here. This is my AM/FM antenna plug, and so this one's gonna come here. And so I'm still holding it sideways. I'm gonna grab the traction control and insert that button down here, like that. I'm gonna grab the hazards button and insert that one right there. So the last 2 plugs is the climate controls down here and the 2 plugs right over here. So now I'm gonna flip it vertically so that I can bring it closer to the dash, and those are gonna be the last connections that I would be making to the back of this unit here. So here are my 2 extensions to the bottom. Okay. There is that one. And there is this one. Now I'm going to connect it to climate control plugs. So once the harnesses are in your 2 bottom plugs, your climate controls, you want to make sure that the bundle of plugs go over that one plastic trim that was behind the radio. And so the cool thing is you can stick your hand up here and guide everything in place in the process of getting this radio into position. So once you've guided those plugs in there, it should click in fairly easy. And so once it's in place, we should be ready to turn it on. The satisfying part out of all this is removing this plastic cover. I apologize for the glare, but this is really what it ends up looking like. Once you're all set and done, the next thing to do would be to basically turn the ignition on, watch it boot up, and go from there. So I had to adjust the camera angle just a little bit so I could get rid of some of the glare from my lamp in the background. So here we are, getting ready to turn the ignition on for the first time. Start the car. The initial boot up process takes approximately 30 seconds. And this is just the first time. Every single time you turn it off and turn it back on, should give you a fast boot. Our headlights are on, so our AC climate control buttons are already backlit, as you can tell right over here. And so, like I said, this process normally takes about 30 seconds. But one of the things that I will show you is how to set up the AC climate controls. One of the things you have to pay close attention to is your factory AC climate controls. Notice how on this one we only have a single temperature settings. We don't have dual zone AC climate controls. So that means we're gonna have to set this AC climate controls to F150 low, depending upon what you have, single or dual. Or if you have the factory touch 360, that's what you're gonna set it up as. So let's go in and verify that to begin with. That way we can verify that our AC climate controls are fully functional. To do that, you're gonna go into your settings. You're gonna then go into system, and then you're gonna select setting guide, which is the first option. And in here, we have car model AC. Now, right now, we're already set up to F150 low. It is set to other. That means it is the 2015 and up model. This is if we had the factory touch 360, meaning we had the factory 360 system in this truck. So since it's already set correctly, our AC climate controls should already be functional. So I'm gonna hit the home screen and I'm gonna hit the fan up. Sure enough, I'm gonna hit the climate button so that we can see it here. Fan down. Our mode button is already working. AC or max AC on. And here we have climate controls down. Remember, different ways of doing the same thing. So this is touchscreen fan down, touchscreen fan up, or hard buttons fan down, fan up. Our mode button, which is the same thing as touching the on-screen buttons right over here. I'll hit the mode button again so I can cycle through those. And then what I'm going to try next is our temperature settings. So this is temperature up. I'm sorry, let me turn the fan speed down. Temperature up, hit the climate button again. Temperature up, temperature down. Remember, you could keep the screen from timing out. We could keep it so that it's always like this. But for the sake of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn my headlights off just so that the screen can go into daytime mode, which is going to make it easier for you guys to see what's going on. So the climate page has a timeout settings, and that is user selectable. You hit the home button, swipe up to go to settings. Inside of system, there is factory settings. The code is 1660. Hit OK. Go ahead and swipe up, and under climate timeout, you can set it so that it's off. This way, whenever you're in the climate page, it'll always stay here until you press the home button to get out of it. Now, again, we've got our AC climate controls already set. We've already verified that we've got AC climate controls fully functional. I'm going to hit the power button and turn it off. I'm going to go to the home screen, and what I'm going to do next is double check where my audio is. So I'm going to hit the radio. So we have static already there. I'm going to press and hold this button. and this happens to be our FM. In here, if you swipe up, you're gonna get your presets. You can press and hold the arrow and let it go so it can tune to the next station. Press and hold it and let it go. So this is your seek function. Press and hold it, and now that's gonna go to the next station. Once you find your favorite station, all you really have to do is press and hold it. Preset 1, for example, is set to 87.5. I'm gonna now set it to 89.9. So press and hold that button. Now I'm set to 89.9. And that's how easy it is for you to set all of your FM, including your AM presets. Now let's double check our factory steering wheel controls. So we've got volume up and down, volume up, we have volume down. We're gonna have preset up and we're gonna have preset down. So that's already working, and that requires no additional programming. Again, that's because of the built-in CAN bus module. You don't need any additional third-party integration modules for your backup camera, for your steering wheel control interfaces, to develop an ignition 12-volt out for this unit. While we're at it, let's go ahead and try our backup camera. It's nighttime out here. My tailgate is open, but ideally this is what we're getting, which is backup camera is fully functional, and the active guidelines are still functional. So that's gonna go ahead and stay there. You can, if you decide to remove the factory backup camera and you go with a better quality aftermarket backup camera and you still want the active guidelines, what's gonna happen, usually those active guidelines are a function of the factory backup camera. We're simply reading the data off the bus. But if you do happen to add an aftermarket backup camera that gives you a better image, you can enable the active guidelines that the unit has the ability to show. So you go into settings, you're gonna go into system, in setting guide, down here, it says dynamic guidelines. You turn those on. Now, right now, because the factory backup camera is there and we enabled a secondary active guidelines, you're gonna see 2 of them. So now you see the one that this head unit has the ability to have, plus the active guidelines from the factory. So this is part of this head unit. That is part of the factory backup camera. So you could still have active guidelines with an aftermarket camera. Usually I would recommend that you get one just so you can have a better backup camera image. What's happening with the factory backup camera is it's usually of low resolution, and when you transmit the low resolution image now through an HD display, it only magnifies how bad the factory backup camera is. And so that's just food for thought, additional information. I'm gonna come in here and disable the active guidelines so that we only get the factory guidelines on our screen. And so other features and functions that we've gone through already when we did the unboxing and we went over all of these different things. One thing that these units have is there's a car settings app. This is everything that the factory radio had the ability to control, including the ambient lighting that some of the F-150s are equipped with, and the massage seats that the Super Duties are equipped with. So that's going to be found inside of the car settings app of this unit itself. So just to recap, climate control settings, when you first install it, make sure that you go into settings, make sure that you pay attention to your factory AC climate controls. Inside of system, you're going to have setting guide, you're going to have car model AC, and in there, you're gonna tell it, I have single zone temperature controls, or I have dual zone temperature controls, and I am not equipped with any additional features like the factory 360 camera system. And so this is where you wanna make sure that you set it correctly so that your climate controls could be functional. Other vehicle specific feature that this head unit has is every time you open a door, it's going to give you a door status indicator. And that can be enabled or disabled. So if you go into settings under the same page, under system, you go into setting guide, you're going to swipe up and you're going to see something that says show door state. You can enable or disable that function where every time you open a door, it's going to pop up. If it's there and you need access to the setting behind it, simply touch it and it'll disappear, just like that. Another cool feature about this head unit is because it's brand new technology. I mean, this has not been out any more than maybe 12 months, if anything. One of the things that I really like about this is the fast boot function. Now, when you turn the truck off and you open the door, the unit's going to turn off. You close the door, you get back in, and you turn it back on. This is when you're going to notice that the unit is already on and it's ready to go. So this is a brand new feature. If you ever notice that the unit takes its time to reboot, or if you ever see the initial boot up screen, it's because you've done one of two things. The unit will cycle power every single time depending on what setting you have the accessory off position set to. So inside of settings, under system, under factory settings, code is 1660, you're going to swipe up to accessory off delay. So what that means is you have two options. There's a 3-minute option and there's a 10-second option. What that means is that if you turn the truck off and you wait 3 minutes and then you turn it back on the 3-minute mark, you're going to see the initial boot up screen every single time you do that. If you have it set to 10 seconds, if you turn your vehicle off, 10 seconds later you turn it back on, you're going to see the initial boot up screen. So let that not take you by surprise if you ever happen to see it. It is designed to have a fast boot function. However, if you happen to turn it off and back on within the 3-minute mark or the 10-second mark, depending upon how you have it set up, it will reboot itself and take those 30 seconds to turn on like it did initially. So just a little bit of heads up, keep that in mind. But other than that, this unit will turn off and turn back on almost immediately every time you get out and back into your car. Now, if you notice, there's a couple of bubbles on the screen, and that's because this unit comes with a plastic screen protector. And so that's what you're seeing. You're seeing those bubbles that are behind that. There is a 13-inch screen protector that's going to be available for this. So make sure you reach out to us to find out what the status of that is. So I just want to thank you guys for sticking along and sticking through this entire video. Hopefully it's been informative. And remember, comment, ask us questions, send us a text message, email us, let us know if there's anything specifically that you need to know about this unit, anything specifically that you like, don't like, or anything about your vehicle. Let us know. We'll be more than happy to assist you, walk you through anything specifically that you might want to know. But other than that, I mean, I can't tell you how nice this thing looks on this dash. I mean, it fits in here perfectly. It looks great. It functions well. It sounds great. And this is not the end of it. I mean, you can expand upon your features and functions from this point forward. I mean, you can download applications. This unit, obviously, as you can tell, is connected to a 4G LTE network. So it's already set up to run applications like YouTube, Netflix, and everything else. Like I said, it's ready to go. So this would be YouTube applications like Netflix are also up and ready to go. And once you load a SIM card into these units, I mean, you're gonna wake up an entire whole new world of possibilities, because you now don't have to fight your Wi-Fi hotspot connection. You now don't have to worry about getting out of the car, getting back in, and having to pair your phone up to it. it doesn't matter. You can have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as an internet connection simultaneously, which means that now if you're driving down the road, typically you would have to pull your phone out of your pocket to search for something because you need to search something on Google. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You could pull over and you could come in here and you can search anything on Google because you're already connected to a network. Your phone can stay in your purse, it could stay in your pocket, wherever it is that you have it, except for on your hands. So guys, thanks again. This has been a pleasure to show you this unit. I'm excited for it, and see you on the next video.